Let's understand the term law, guys. Very important, so we can leverage this understanding to our advantage, right? God gave us as humans dominion over ourselves and the land, air, and water. This sovereignty, dominion, guys, was shortened to a simple term called law. L, guys, stands for land, and land is common law or equity law. A is for the air or trust law, and W is for water or maritime law or law of commerce and contracts. So let's just go through and understand these three jurisdictions, right? So what is common law? Law of the land. Guys, law of the land, common law, refers to humans' inalienable rights to possess or own our own property. Note I said inalienable, can't be removed or revoked ever. In other words, guys, common law is referred to as the law of the land or law relating to ownership or equity, right? Let's now have a look at law of the air or trust law. Guys, these are God's inalienable rights granted to humanity to act in a fiduciary capacity in service to others. Let's explore maritime law or law of the sea, right? This is the law which focuses on commerce, contracts, or corporate law. This construct of law focuses on providing rules, regulations, codes, etc. And it's there to regulate corporate governance, no more. So it's very important to note that each law is separate and viewed independently to each other. In other words, they are three separate jurisdictions. Law of the land, law of the air, law of the water, right? Let's understand the term jurisdiction now, right? The word jurisdiction is one of the words that are purposely misused by attorneys and judges, guys. And the reason they do that is to confuse people, right? The legal fraternity, guys, has so frequently misused the term jurisdiction to describe venues in error that we now mistakenly believe that a venue can have jurisdiction. I think the best way for me to explain this is with an example, right? So we erroneously believe that the federal government or the state or city has jurisdiction. This is absolutely incorrect, guys, as it doesn't describe jurisdiction, it describes venue. Jurisdiction is very specific and relates to law. Namely, it describes the jurisdiction under which it will be, the case can be adjudicated. In other words, will it be seen under trust law, common law, or maritime law? That is how we determine jurisdiction. So jurisdiction is not venue. Jurisdiction is land, air, or water. Guys, this is done as follows, right? So any cases relating to the formation of trusts and the administration is obviously adjudicated using the principles related to trust law. Any cases brought before the court relating to land or ownership or equity, obviously handled with common law. And guys, any cases relating to corporations, vessels, or persons are then adjudicated according to maritime law. Here's just something I want you to remember, guys. You want to remember that as our mothers unknowingly ward us to the state on registration of our births and issuance of a birth certificate, we all fall under the rules, regulations, and codes prescribed by maritime law unless we can prove that we've met the following conditions, right? Very important to understand these conditions, right? So we must have created an express trust, which we have in our possession, right? What is an express trust? An express trust is a written trust document detailing the executor, trustees, property under management, describing the beneficiaries and their heirs, etc. We must also have changed our status from a citizen, person, or resident to a state national. We must also have claimed ownership and possession of the proceeds from our minor estate. You're classed as a minor for two reasons, right? The one we know very well is if you're under the age of 18 years of age, but there's a second one, and this is how they trap us. If you've not claimed the proceeds of your minor estate, your CQV trust, you are viewed as a minor. Once you've claimed ownership of your vessel as described by your all capitalized name, you need to take ownership. How do you do this? Guys, this is achieved by registering a trademark and copyright against your vessel or that name on your birth certificate, that all capitalized vessel, that you need to claim ownership with a copyright and trademark. You cannot be viewed as having given tacit approval to be recognized as a citizen, person, or resident, right? So let's first of all define what a citizen is, right? A citizen is simply a municipal servant. A person is viewed as a vessel or corporation, and a resident is a person who is temporarily permitted to reside in a location, guys. So you've got to not have given tacit approval to be any of those. Guys, you also have to have gold or silver in your possession so that you cannot be viewed as a pauper who is unable to represent him or herself. You'll be recognized as a minor. Guys, the reason for this is that fiat currency is viewed as legal tender only, which means that it never settles a debt, but only is a promissory note that payment will be made at a later date, namely when, on your death, when your CQV trust is finalized. It's that crazy, right? Let's talk about regaining your sovereignty, right? But this comes with a warning. So yes, guys, I just want to put in a warning about when you go about working to regain your sovereignty, right? Unfortunately, there's a lot of groups out there which try to support people to regain their sovereignty, but unfortunately, they only focus on two jurisdictions of law, namely maritime and common law. They forget about trust law. Guys, this is why some people get themselves into massive trouble when they try to regain their sovereignty. They forget about one. They think they can jump out of two into one, and that's how they get themselves into trouble. So by focusing only on common law and maritime law, guys, they get nailed by trust law or the Khazarian Mafia's secret weapon, namely declaring as a pauper because you're not in possession of silver or gold. Guys, these guys are this devious, right? So the best way I can explain this, guys, is via an example. So I want to give you an example of when you go into court and how a judge looks at your case, right? So when a judge is adjudicating your case, he or she works as follows, guys. They first recognize the hierarchy which exists between the three jurisdictions, namely air, land, and sea. So the law of the air or trust law is viewed as the top or superior law. Common or equity law is then viewed as the secondary or what we refer to as supreme law. And maritime or law of commerce is then the third law that in the hierarchy of jurisdiction. As your case starts in court, the judge first evaluates whether your case meets the criteria to be heard according to the law of the air, namely trust law, because it's the superior law. So let's have a look at trust law and what that means, right? So as your case is heard, the judge first explores the case from a trust law. So he starts at the highest law, the law with the highest jurisdiction, right? So he starts with trust law. In other words, guys, he will evaluate the words used, the documents which are presented, and your first response to your summons as you take your first step in court to assess, guys, whether the case can be heard using the jurisdiction of the law of the air or trust law. When you call to the dock, this is the exact words that you need to say to establish yourself as a living person. So as you stand up in court, these are the words that you must speak to immediately establish yourself as a living being. This is how it goes. I am here as the executor of my vessel's CQV trust by special divine appearance, Judge, to settle this matter. I call for a constitutional court of record to ask for a summary judgment on the truth and facts placed before this court on record by my documents, and I stand firmly by my rights. As executor of my vessel's estate, I call for a summary judgment, Your Honor. Guys, what this does is this statement basically immediately establishes you as a living being, an executor of your trust. The judge will also examine any documents present to establish jurisdiction. So what you need to hold to prove that you hold jurisdiction and not the judge, you want to hold up a copy of your express trust document which outlines the following. Remember, your trust documents are private. You don't need to show it to the judge. You just need to hold it up. In this document needs to say how and why you are the executor of your CQV trust. This precludes the judge from acting as the implied executor to your CQV trust. Why? Because you are there acting as the executor to the state. Guys, an express trust is a written trust detailing the executor, trustees, beneficiaries, trustees' acceptance letter as a trustee. It must also outline the property that the trust manages and how the trust is to be managed, and it's got to demonstrate the heirs to the trust as well. Guys, once you present an express trust document in court, the judge cannot, as is the norm, act as the implied trustee of your CQV trust. as the executor of the said trust is present. You, namely you. Guys, the judge then accepts that he has no jurisdiction under the law of the heir or trust law to adjudicate the case as you, the executor of the estate, is present. He then proceeds to examine whether he has jurisdiction to proceed with common law. Guys, common law, remember, is equity. So that's equity or common law, guys. And how does he evaluate this? Well, when evaluating his jurisdiction in terms of common law, he once again examines the words used, documents presented, and the words you choose to use in court. Because if you want a case to be heard under common law, you need to use the right words. So the next question is, do you hold copyright over your vessel's name that is written in all capital letters? Next question is, do you hold documents detailing your superior title over any property? Guys, that is called land patent and grand deeds, etc. Guys, I'm going to describe all of this in a later video, guys, how to do this for both your house, car, and any other possessions that you have, guys. The judge looks to see if you've remedied the principle of parens patria by taking back ownership of your minor trust. The judge then looks to see if you have, by tacit agreement, accepted your status as a citizen, person, or resident. If you're seen as a citizen, person, or resident, you cannot have your case heard under common law. The way that you show tacit agreement is you're still registered to vote, you have a driver's license, etc. If you're just a normal private person in the course of your private duties, you don't need a license. Only time you need a license if you're driving people for gain, moving goods across state lines, or you're in the employ of the government driving a vehicle on the job as a policeman, ambulance driver, etc. Otherwise, you do not need a license. Finally, the judge will then evaluate the circumstances of the case to see if you have caused injury to another. Remember, common law, guys, is also based on the principle of do no harm. So once the judge has evaluated all the above, and he cannot utilize any of them to evaluate jurisdiction, he then cannot utilize the jurisdiction of common law to adjudicate your case. Finally, guys, when the judge cannot prosecute you using trust law or common law, he then has to explore his standing in terms of maritime law or law of the sea. So in terms of using the jurisdiction of maritime law of the sea to adjudicate your case, the judge must prove your standing as a citizen, a person, or a resident, right? And that can be by tacit approval. In other words, if you've registered as a voter or you have a driver's license, that's tacit approval, right? So as you've already demonstrated that you are the executive of your CQV trust, guys, and you've also demonstrated that you hold copyright over your vessel's name and that you hold superior title over any property, guys, the judge must proceed as follows. He first explores all your corporations. Remember, guys, your straw man is a corporation, right? To see if their business dealing, contracts, etc. are all in order. He then checks to see if you have any trademarks for your vessel, which is defined by your all capitalized name. Once it is discovered, guys, that you hold trademarks for your vessel, which is defined by your all capitalized name, the judge cannot proceed using the jurisdiction of maritime law either, as the judiciary, guys, can only regulate businesses with legislation, rules, codes, etc. They can never interfere in the running of said business. And as you hold a trademark, they cannot interfere in the way that you run your business. You own your business, you own your vessel. Guys, the final place, and this is, it comes to the warning as well. The final place that a judge may act against us is if we are viewed as a pauper. So guys, keep this in mind. No matter how much fiat currency you may have, you are still viewed or can be viewed as a pauper if you don't hold gold or silver on your sovereign self. Fiat currency, guys, is viewed as legal tender only. What this means is that when you believe that you are paying off a debt, you're only giving the person a promissory note, declaring that the debt will be settled at a later date. Guys, this is why I always carry a couple of silver coins in my pocket with me. As long as you have a silver or a gold coin in the possession of your sovereign being, you can never be viewed as a pauper.